Chairs No Waiting, episode number 441, How Floyd Got Started. Two Chairs No Waiting is brought to you each week by the folks over at weaversdepartmentstore.com. Drop by over at Weavers and check out the definitive Andy Griffith Show reference. It's a softcover book with all kinds of details about the Andy Griffith Show. A great book for your library, the definitive Andy Griffith Show reference. And if you're listening to this anywhere near live, the 2018 Andy Griffith Show wall calendar is out. So head over and get yourself one of those as well. weaversdepartmentstore.com. Hello, everybody. I'm Al Newsom, your host for Two Chairs No Waiting. I want to thank you. I want to thank you for supporting Weavers. And thank you to all my patrons who also support this show. Thank you for being a part of bringing Mayberry to everybody. And I would love to have you help me out. Because once you see this or hear this, episode today, number 441, is going to be about the very first time I ever did Floyd, not Howard McNear. So we're talking about how Floyd got started, but it's not about how the Floyd got started. It's about how Alan, myself, got started doing Floyd at the barber. Well, let me tell you just a little bit of the story here before I actually throw into this. But in 1993, Jan and I went to Mayberry Days. That was my wife and I. It was the first trip to any kind of a Mayberry event, and I just got to tell you, it was amazing fun. We had a great time, and so. While we were there, we met Kenneth Junkin and the Hearty Eating Men and Beautiful Delicate Women chapter from down in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. Well, since I live in Huntsville, it's not very far down to Tuscaloosa, about 2.5, a little bit more hours from here. And so we found out that they were going to be having a thing called Mule Day down in Gordo in July of 1994. So, and that David Browning, the Mayberry Deputy, Barney, he was going to be there. So Jan and I said, hey, that's pretty close to us. Let's go down there and enjoy spending some time and see what it's like. We've never been. So come, June, actually, it was June, early June, Jan and I headed down to Gordo, Alabama, and it was a fun day. It was a small town. They had mules going up and down the street. They had, old kinds of classic cars up and down the street, tractors. It was fun. We had a great time. Well, a few weeks later in July, they were having the Mayberry Squad Car Rendezvous in Bradford, Ohio. And so we decided we were going to go to that as well. So we were there. I should tell you that while we were at Gordo that evening, David Browning, and all the Hearty Eating Men, we all got together to go out to eat. And while we were waiting to go out to eat, I was sitting around. We were all doing lines from the show. And if you talked like Briscoe, you say, Charlene, let that boy go. Because you have to do that when you do the quotes. I'm sure you do that too. So every quote you do, you end up talking like, now men, here at the Rock. You try to talk like the character. And granted, those are not great Briscoe or Barney impersonations, but that's what you do. So it finally came, I was doing lines from the show, and I said, hey, did you see what it said on the sidewalk out there? Bobby Gribble hates him a lot. Yeah. When that sidewalk was pouring, yeah, he wrote that out there then. Yeah. Yeah, they must have been back in high school like that. Now they're announcing their coming nuptials. Yeah. Yeah, Bobby dipping her pigtails in the inkwell. Can't you just see? Yeah. Oh, she'll get even with him now. Yeah. So anyway, I was doing that line, which I just did it, and that was a paraphrase, not the exact line from the show. I'm disappointed in myself. But that's what I was doing. And so David Browning loved it. He thought it was funny. He loves Floyd. He says Floyd is his favorite character. So in July, when we traveled to the Mayberry Squad Car Rendezvous in Ohio, Bradford, Ohio, he had me coming around and talking to people like Floyd. He'd say, hey, Floyd, come over here. Well, I was dressed in a T-shirt, a pair of shorts. And I would go over and talk like Floyd for people. and they'd laugh and have a good time. Well, at the end of the day, at the squad car rendezvous, David Browning, Barney, took me to the side and said, you really ought to do this at Mayberry Days. Because back then, in 94, there were only two tribute artists. It was basically David Browning, the Mayberry Deputy, and Phil Lee, not Phil Fox, Phil Lee, who did Ernest T. Bass. Now we have Phil Fox that works with us, but Phil Lee was the original Ernest T. for Mayberry Days. So there were only two. So he said, why don't you come and dress up like Floyd and be a part of the event? And so, I don't know. I'm an electrical engineer. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm not an actor. I don't get out in front of people and do stuff. I don't do podcasts like this. No, I don't do anything like that. So anyway, on the drive home, of course, it was a 6.5, 7 hour plus drive back to Huntsville from Bradford, Ohio. So Jan and I talked about it, and she encouraged me. But, she did not know at the time, obviously, that I was going to do Floyd that one time and then do it for the next 20 some odd years. Or she may have had a different thought. I don't know. But she said, yeah, Alan, you ought to do Floyd. You ought to do this. You ought to try it. It'll be fun. You can give it a try. So I started practicing. I started trying to figure out, okay, if I'm going to be Floyd, I want to do a good job. So I want to figure out how to do it. How does he move? What's his mannerisms? So I already knew pretty well because we watch him on TV all the time. So we knew that, but you got to start trying to be like Floyd. So I started watching episodes more, and then I started practicing in front of a mirror, and I'd move around and try to move like Floyd and grab a tie in front of myself and move my fingers like Floyd does. And start talking like that. Yeah. But I was doing it looking in a mirror. Now, I don't know if you've ever tried anything to impersonate something or figure out exactly what you look like. But when you're looking in a mirror, you behave differently than you do if you're not looking in the mirror, because you're watching yourself as you do it. So I realized that. And so I started recording myself. And actually, Chris asked me, a fellow asked me recently, did I keep any of those films? And, I don't think I did. But wouldn't that be fun to see? I doubt I have any. But I would record myself on video and then watch myself back. So I would do Floyd. I would stop it, rewind, and watch myself and see how I did. So I started picking up mannerisms and things like doing that. So this was July. So I was getting ready for Mayberry Days in September. So by the 4th of August, I had already been practicing for 2 or 3 weeks trying to get ready for this. I was nowhere near ready, but I was working at it. And I knew I was going to have to get out in front of people and everything to do this. Well, in the meantime, I had been scheduled to appear on a show called Cooper and Company that comes on here in the Huntsville area. It's a local early morning program. Most of you probably have programs like that in your area. And Jamie Cooper is the host, and he had a co-host named Tony at the time. Now, so they had invited me on to talk about the Andy Griffith Show. So I was coming on as just an Andy Griffith Show fan to give them information about the Andy Griffith Show Rerun Watchers Club and share that Mayberry spirit like I'm always trying to get you guys to do. And I was on there for that. Well, as I said, it's an early morning show, so I had to probably be there at 5 o'clock. It started at 6, or it could have been even earlier. I don't remember, but it was a very early morning show. And I was there, as I said, to talk about the Mayberry stuff. Well, one of the segments they have during their show is a thing called Tony's Table Talk. And during Tony's Table Talk, Tony interviews a restaurant owner or something from the area who's advertising on the show maybe. And this is a way for them to talk about their restaurant and give information about their menus and upcoming events at their restaurant. Well, this particular day, the owner of the restaurant did not make it in that morning. So Tony, I had on a Floyd the Barber t-shirt. I had on a chair that said 2 chairs, no waiting, by the way. Floyd's Barbershop is what it said. It was one from Floyd's City Barbershop in Mount Airy, North Carolina. It was their shirt that I was wearing. So that's what I had on. And so they said, hey, here, put on this straw hat. So there was a straw hat. And he said, put this on, and I'm going to call you Floyd, and you can do the table talk with me and talk about the restaurant. I said, well, yeah, sure, I can do that. And he said, well, I'm going to call you Floyd the whole time. I'm going to call you Floyd instead of Alan. I said, okay. All right. So we sat down at this little table where they were going to film it, and it's a checkered tablecloth. And Tony's sitting there. I'm sitting on one side of the table. He's on the other. It's kind of side by side. And Tony begins to talk about the restaurant. And then he finally decides he's going to talk to me. And he says, well, Floyd, what are you going to do? Well, that particular shot, I had decided as he was talking, as I was getting ready, is like, well, if he's going to call me Floyd, I'm going to try to act like Floyd. Now, hopefully over the years, I've gotten better at acting like Floyd and even sound a little bit better than I did at this scene that you're going to hear or see if you're watching the video. But this is the very first appearance of Alan as Floyd. Now you'll hear, because Tony didn't know I was going to do this. He didn't know I was going to start talking like Floyd and acting like, of course I do, Tony. And start talking like, kind of like Floyd. It's kind of an Italian version of Floyd when you listen. But it's still a neat thing that I have. And I think some of you guys will enjoy it, especially if you listen to the podcast all the time. If you're a new listener, I'm sorry, all the shows are not about me. So please go on to another episode and enjoy yourself, and then come back when you decide if you like me or not and watch this. But guys, here we go. Let's check out the Tony's Table Talk. That was my first appearance as Floyd the Barber.
Now here's Tony to talk a little bit about reeds and about crawdaddies.
Crawdaddies. We're going to feature crawdaddies today, Jamie. Have with me Floyd Smith, all the way from Mount Pilot, North Carolina.
That's right there, Tony.
Yeah, Mount Pilot. And I tell you, do you y'all have a good seafood place up there?
Oh, it's crawdaddies. It's wonderful.
Yeah. It is a good, I tell you, Crawdaddies is a wonderful place to eat over in Guntersville, Alabama. They got steamed shrimp, they got steamed fish, they got oysters, and they got crabs, and they got lobster, they got crawfish and mussels. Man, they just got any kind of seafood you want, and it's healthy, and it is delicious.
Oh, it's wonderful. It's just the best place ever.
It is.
It's wonderful there.
It is. It's absolutely wonderful. The atmosphere is great, man. It's just like being on the Gulf Coast. You ever been on the Gulf Coast?
Well, yes, but I can't swim, so I just eat there.
Yeah, you go down there and eat. They got great stuff over at Crawdaddies. Go over to Crawdaddies and enjoy yourself. Go by and see Charlotte. Charlotte was supposed to be here today. Ron was supposed to be here today. They didn't make it, but Floyd Smith made it. And Floyd, we're so glad you're here.
Well, thank you, Tony. It's so good to be here.
Yeah, have you had a haircut recently?
Well, of course I have. After all, I'm a barber.
You're a barber, yeah, and you have 2 chairs and no waiting, right?
That's right, 2 chairs. I'm proprietor of a 2-chair shop.
That is wonderful. That's great. Well, be sure and go by Crawdaddies this weekend. They're open Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. Go by and see them and tell Charlotte we said get out of here and really, really enjoy. Their seafood is absolutely the best in all of North Alabama. It is absolutely wonderful. Go by and see them and tell them we sent you. Back to you, Jamie.
All right, thank you there, Tony and Floyd. Speaking.
So there you go. That was the very first appearance of Floyd the Barber. And as I said, I had a definite Italian, hello, get out of there. I don't know what I was doing, but I was trying to learn to be Floyd. That was Floyd Smith. Floyd Smith. That wasn't Floyd Lawson. So that was Floyd Smith from the old country. He was from the old country. He was the barber of Seville, I do believe. So anyway, I hope you enjoy things like that. That was a fun day, and you could hear, if you were paying attention to the audio there, you could hear the people laugh, and they were the sound guys and the guys running the cameras. They started laughing when I was doing this stuff because they didn't know I was going to do it. Tony himself started laughing because he didn't know I was going to do it either. So it was It was a lot of fun. Folks in the chat room says Floyd sounds like he was a little tiddly. He's been drinking some of Colonel Harvey's Indian elixir, ladies and gentlemen. So anyway, that is what I have to tell you about tonight. It's amazing. It's been an amazing life. That was in August 1994. And I've been doing Floyd the barber at Mayberry events ever since then. It's been a real treat. I've been a blessed person to be able to do that. And then also I've been doing this podcast since 2008, and that's been a blessing too. It's been so fun to get to know and be a part of people's lives, get to know people through being Floyd. And somebody in the chat room just said they weren't even born yet. That hurts me. I've been doing this a long time. I've got some pictures of myself doing Floyd with a young man that must have been probably about 12. And now he's a father and has children. So, it kind of puts it all in perspective of how long this has been. But folks, I hope you enjoy this. I hope you know how much I enjoy being Floyd and just talking about the Andy Griffith Show and being around, not just the cast members that I get to be around, but especially being around all of you, the friends and neighbors I've got to meet over the years. All right, so next up, we have our wonderful weekly report from our friend Randy Turner from the Gomer and Goober Pyle Comic Book Literary Guild.
Welcome to This Week in Mayberry History, a report by special correspondent Randy Turner of the Gomer and Goober Pyle Comic Book Literary Guild of the Mayberry Historical Society.
Barbara Eden was born on August 23, 1931. She appeared in Mayberry only once, but her performance as Ellen Brown is a fan favorite. After fleeing a persistent suitor who had proposed marriage, she got off the bus purely because the sign at the town limits read, "Welcome to Mayberry, the friendly town." After some difficulty, she finally established a manicurist service, resulting in the local women becoming jealous that all the men were enthusiastically enjoying their manicures by such an attractive woman. The situation resolved when she decided to accept her boyfriend's proposal. Barbara was raised in San Francisco, where after her first year of college, where she studied theater, she was named Miss San Francisco, and subsequently competed in the Miss California pageant. 5 years later, she began appearing semi-regularly in skits on The Johnny Carson Show. She began regular roles in both film and television in 1956. Her first regular role was as Loco Jones in the 1957 to 1959 television series How to Marry a Millionaire, based on the earlier 1953 film of the same name. After the series ended, Barbara continued to guest star in episodic television, including her well-remembered appearance in The Andy Griffith Show. Around the same time, she also started landing larger film roles, such as co-starring with Elvis Presley in Flaming Star, and appearing in several films with a fantasy element, such as The Wonderful World of the Brothers Grimm. Notably, she also appeared in The Brass Bottle in 1964 as Sylvia Kenton, the girlfriend of Tony Randall's character, Harold Ventimore. In the film, Harold buys a large antique brass container, which he discovers holds an imprisoned genie, played by Burl Ives, who continually causes problems for Harold while trying to help him. Noting that Bewitched debuted as the second highest Nielsen-rated show in 1964, producer Sidney Sheldon created the concept for I Dream of Jeannie, clearly inspired by The Brass Bottle. Sheldon approached Barbara, whom he had seen in The Brass Bottle, leading to her being cast in the title role. Barbara played a 2,000-year-old genie set free by astronaut and Air Force officer Tony Nelson, played by Larry Hagman. Jeannie ran for 5 seasons, from 1965 to 1970. The standards of the times were certainly more restrictive, with the National Association of Broadcasters in 1951 having banned a woman's navel from being shown on television, though the restriction was not always followed. NBC banned Jeannie's navel from being seen and hid it with the tall waistband of her outfit, though in fact the costume occasionally slipped, revealing that she did indeed have a belly button. The network also refused to allow an unveiling of her navel on Rowan and Martin's Laugh-In. After Jeannie ended, Barbara's next large role was Estella Johnson in Harper Valley PTA, a 1978 comedy based on the popular country song of the same title. Just as the ballad had done, the film told the story of a woman looked down upon for not meeting the standards espoused by the local parent-teacher association. Stella exposed the skeletons in the PTA members' closets in public at a PTA meeting, exposing them as hypocrites. The film was later turned into a television series of the same name as a mid-season replacement that ran for 2 seasons beginning in 1981, again starring Barbara. Finally, while not a regular attendee, Barbara has attended Mayberry Days, the annual festival held every September in Andy Griffith's hometown of Mount Airy, North Carolina. That's it for this week. As always, thanks for listening, and remember to take Andy's advice and go out there and act like somebody.
All right. Well, thank you, Randy. And again, if you guys enjoy these This Week in Mayberry History, you can get a daily dose of Mayberry History by sending Randy an email at turnersgrade@gmail.com, and he will let you know when he posts them, the daily versions of these, over at the Gomer and Goober Pyle Comic Book Literary Guild. So thank you again, Randy. He's been providing us reports. This was our 34th report for 2017. So thank you so much for all that you're doing. Friends, I hope you've enjoyed this. I've got one little other treat for you. This is from a few years later. I think it was 2008 is where this video comes from. And this is at Mayberry Days as well. And by now, Floyd has gone from being Italian to being a little bit more Mayberry-ish. But this is the closing of Colonel Tim's. So I tell you what, we're going to kind of play out on this. This is how we close it every year, or almost every year, with a rendition of My Hometown. And it just happens to be by Floyd the Barber and Elvis Presley. That's right. Michael Hoover does it as well. So ladies and gentlemen, you have a great week. I'd love to hear from you. Give me a call at 888-684-8415, or just drop by twochairsnowaiting.com and click the contact button, and you'll see how. So folks, enjoy this. I hope you do. Sing along with My Hometown. My hometown is the greatest place I know, where the neighbors I find are gentle and kind, and the living's easy and slow. My hometown is the only place to be, where the worries are small and the kids grow tall and strong and healthy and free. It's my hometown, my hometown.